What's going on, guys? Been a while since I've been on YouTube, made a video. God damn, has it just been one of the most boring fucking off seasons I can remember in a little while as a Tigers fan. And just in baseball in general, because the whole complex of baseball now with mega free agent superstars isn't the same as it was about 10 years ago. You know, like when Albert Pujols got his 10 at 243, or when the Tigers re-upped Miguel Cabrera a few years ago and he got the mega contract. All these huge mega contract guys have shifted the market in such a fashion that with the relevancy of analytics, the way the Cubs, the Astros have won the World Series with their style of younger guys, suck for a few years, unload bad contracts, build within and build up your farm system, it's really made for a boring offseason. There really hasn't been much to talk about. I mean, what am I going to do? Come on here and rant and rave that the Tigers signed fucking Matt Moore and Tyson Ross and that they got Gordon Beckham on a minor league or spring training invite, just like when they got Daniel Norris or Derek Norris last year. It might have been 2 years ago on a spring invitation invite, and he didn't even make the team. It's just been a really boring off season. But, you know, it's what to expect when you're a team that lost 98 games last year. But he did kind of want to come on here and just kind of lay what I'm looking forward to in spring training. As stated before, the Tigers have had a few minor moves this offseason. The three biggest ones. So Matt Moore, and basically all they're hoping for with Matt Moore is that he's a Mike Fiers version 2.0. You know, I came on here last year when Mike Fiers got signed by the Tigers. I really liked the deal. He was a guy that had a decent track record. You know, he had a couple of up and down years the year before, but he had a decent track record. He's a guy that had done it before. He's a guy that could give you some innings. He was a veteran guy that, you know, when you had injury-prone guys like Michael Fulmer and Daniel Norris and Jordan Zimmerman as your top three, you needed a guy that you knew you could hand the ball to every fifth day, and that's been one thing that Mike Fiers has definitely done in his career. He's been a guy that's been pretty decently healthy, and he's been a guy you could give the ball to every fifth day. And what did he do? He went and exceeded that above and beyond, and the Tigers ended up flipping him to Oakland. And Oakland ended up re-upping him after not re-signing him, then re-signing him after a couple of months. It was kind of weird. But that one worked out well, you know, and then they got Francisco Liriano. And when they got Francisco Liriano, that did not work out well. You know, he started the season out like gangbusters, and by mid-year, he was Francisco Liriano, walking the farm, but then there would be days where he'd strike out everyone and their brother. You know, Babe Ruth couldn't get a hit off of him. You know, there's some days the stuff is that good. But, you know, he's always been a guy, high walk rate, and erratic with his command. So, Matt Moore, I remember when he came out of, I think he came out of North Carolina. I remember specifically I was writing baseball articles for, what the hell were they fucking Armchair Report, and that's a fucking long time ago. And then I ended up going to Rant Sports. If you guys have been with my channel for a while, I was 19, 20 years old writing for those guys, and I thought I was going to be the next Ken Rosenthal by the time I was my age now, which, never came to fruition because I sucked ass at it. But neither here nor there. I remember writing an article about Matt Moore going, man, I cannot wait for the Rays to call this kid up. He is going to be something special because he threw hard. He had strikeout stuff. He dominated the minors. He was ready to come up. He was a top 20 prospect. And he came up and he was really fucking good. And the Rays ended up, giving him that long-term contract extension to buy out his arbitration years. And I think 1 year of free agency. I think only in his second year of the big leagues. And then he got hurt and he's been inconsistent. And his last 500 innings pitched, it was like 450 and some change, I think. 450, 500, he's had like an ERA well over 5. And he's bounced around from Texas to San Francisco, now to the Tigers. And, he's been around the block a little bit. But for a 1 year deal at practically chump change, even if he's not good, and he could stay healthy and give you innings with this rotation where you're 1 to 2 years away from being able to throw your big dogs in the minor leagues up in the starting five on a daily basis because they're getting closer, they're starting to knock on the door. Fuck it. I don't care if he goes out there and has a 5.5 ERA this year. If he gives you 140 innings and you can't flip him at the deadline, and Norris is going to go, he's either going to be eventually in the pen this year because he can't make 30 starts. Matt Boyd's going to go through his consistent run because he's never going to be able to give you 32 starts of consistent starting. He's had Jekyll and Hyde. And that's been perplexing about him because it's been 2 straight years where he's been so good at times where, he's the lead dog in the staff when it comes to the most consistency because, Fulmer's been hurt. And then he's the guy where, it's like, fuck. Oh, Matt Boyd's pitching again today. But he has his stuff. And I think he's really learned that he's finally developed a third pitch. He's got a really good curveball. He's learned to get out right-handers a little bit better. He cuts his fastball a little bit at times. He's got a good slider. He's got some stuff. And I think he could be a very solid number 3 starter. If you go back and look at some of his splits from month by month, start by start, he has shown you the ability to get out lineups multiple times, which is something that was always my biggest complaint about Matt Boyd since we got him. But in the last 2 years, he's shown the ability to do that at times. But he's not going to give you 32 straight starts of that. He's just not. And it just, that's why with someone like Matt Moore, even though it's not a quality, it could be a quality arm because he still has stuff. Matt Moore has always had a big arm. He's always had good secondary off-speed stuff. But his problem is he's had shoulder issues. He's had disabilities to not stay on the field. He's been getting hit around a lot at times. And that's something that, what you need to hope for is that Moore comes out, lights the world on fire, and you flip him for something good. But even neither here nor there, even if he turns into a dumpster fire where you hope it goes to the point where you can put it out with a fire extinguisher and he's somewhat passable, where instead of a mid-5 ERA, he gives you something like 4.5 and 160 innings. That way you're not, one, burning up, you have to rush these guys up to the minors because you need arms. 2, you're not going out signing someone like Randy Wolf like they did a couple years ago because they were asking me if I could throw every 5th day because they were so low on starters. And 3, you just need an arm out there that you can call on every 5th day regardless if it's not the best. I remember in like the mid-2010s, like when they fucking were throwing Andy Oliver out there and Kyle Lobstein out there, because they were just trying to find someone to stick. Or Charlie Furbush when the whole Phil Koch experiment failed and they finally threw him out of the bullpen and they put Charlie Furbush out there as a 5th starter for a couple of games. So that's the whole thing with Matt Moore. And the same thing with Tyson Ross. Tyson Ross is a former All-Star, as Matt Moore is. And Tyson Ross has been another guy that's had good stuff and could get hitters out, but, he's been hurt. And he's been inconsistent. So you can't really talk bad on either or the signings because you don't want to sit here and rush Alex Faedo or Franklin Perez or Babe Burrows or Casey Mize. You don't want to have to do like what the Braves did and they called Dansby Swanson up and like when the Astros called up Alex Bregman when he was only I think a year into the minors, and start that clock. Now the Braves, their farm system was a little bit deeper, and I think they knew they had guys on the horizon with that next year when they called up Swanson. Ozzie Albies came up, and then they got something like Nick Markakis and Freddie Freeman bounced back and whatnot. And then, with the Astros, they already had Carlos Correa, and they already had Jose Altuve and George Springer, and then Bregman, who struggled really bad when he first came up. And I remember he actually got in trouble for social media because he was talking some shit. But that's actually become one of his strong points is the social media game. Didn't do that hot to start, but now he's a fucking stud. But they were closer to being a playoff team, and then get Justin Verlander, and then they put him over the top, and now they're a fucking dominant force. The Tigers aren't in that spot. So if you got to start some of these guys' clocks a year earlier than you want, and you're going to lose 85 plus games this year, there's not really much of a point. So if you get your teeth knocked in and don't have to start these guys' clocks, and you can do it with, either having Casey Mize get his teeth knocked in, but you're losing a year of service time on a team that's not going anywhere, or you have Matt Moore's teeth knocked in when he's only making like $3 million, you're going to suck either way. Might as well save the service time from when you're good. And Al Avila actually made a comment about that talking about how he thinks the Tigers by 2021 is the time that they're going to start spending money again. I think by next year is when the Tigers could be a fringe playoff team, because remember last year, about 80 games in, they were a 500 team and they were chasing Cleveland only by 2 games. And, then they lost 11 straight games, which is where they should have been. I was telling people all along, they're overachieving, they're not as good as they are, and they lost 11 straight games, and, then it became like the 3rd or 4th worst team in baseball, which is what they should have been. They overachieved. You're not going to sit there and be a 500 squad when fucking, Nico Goodrum is, it was like leading your team and everything for a couple of weeks there. It's just not going to happen. But so then they got Tyson Ross, and then they signed Gordon Beckham with a minor league, with a spring training invite. Gordon Beckham sucks. Decent glove, but he can't hit worth a shit. I think he gets bounced in spring training because their infield is too crowded. Nico Goodrum absolutely has changed that infield. You got Jordy Mercer now. So I don't see where he fits, because J-Mer can hold his own there at third. He's way better at Castellanos. Really, I'm better than Castellanos at third. He's not good at third at any defense anymore. We'll talk about that in a second. J-Mer is going to hold his own at third. Jordy is going to do great with the platoon there at short between him and Goodrum and Lugo. They got so many fucking infield prospects, and they still got Sandy Alcantara, and they still got Isaac Paredes and Willie Castro. I mean, they got so many fucking infield prospects. Gordon Beckham, I don't see how he fits. I think this is a chance for Gordon Beckham to play his brains out and get traded to a spot where he can get to a bench role spot. So, that is what it is. It's not anything special. And they signed one other guy for a spring training invite, but it's not even important, really, because I doubt they make the team. I can't even remember because the signing was so meaningless. Now, Nick Castellanos has been rumbling in the headlines a little bit again lately, and it seems like every week there's a Nick Castellanos article. Are the Tigers going to trade him? When are the Tigers going to trade him? Is he going to get moved before spring training? Is he going to get moved before the deadline? Blah, 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 blah. Well, Vila came out and said Castellanos has pretty much no value. Castellanos is coming off his career best year. 23 home runs, 85 plus RBIs, a decent on base. I think he hit almost 300, But the problem is, in baseball today, see, if Castellanos' skill set was around about 10 years ago, when, guys like Adam Dunn were still relevant, or when, or 2011-12, when guys like Chris Davis was, the dude, even though Chris Davis could actually play a decent first base at one time. But Chris Davis and Adam Dunn and Mark Reynolds, or, God, I'm trying to think of some other strikeout guys, like Chris Carter. When those guys were in their heydays, the Tigers could get something for him, because the teams were, I think the premise of the 3-run home run was a little bit more relevant, because the Tigers were one of those teams. I was just watching the 2013 opening day the other day, with Prince Fielder, Johnny Peralta, Victor Martinez, Miguel Cabrera. They had guys, so many dudes that could bomb the ball out of the yard, just like nothing. They played for the 3-run home run, but couldn't play fucking defense. But they never won a World Series. They had a 4-year stretch of being amazingly good, and you dominated a really shit-ass division where there was only 1 year when you were actually really challenged, and that was the year the White Sox blew the division, and you won it the last month, which was 2011, even though Cleveland kind of was there for a little bit, but the Tigers really weren't challenged. Excuse me. So Castellanos doesn't have really any kind of trade value in today's baseball. There's teams with Manny Machado and Bryce Harper still being free agents at this point in the offseason. February is practically tomorrow, and these guys still haven't signed yet. If guys like Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, who are 26, same age as Nick Castellanos, going to be making fucking 30 times more than Nick is going to make in free agency, because think about it, JD got, 5 at 100. So, and JD isn't a good outfielder. They snuck him in at DH at all, but he's actually, by defensive metrics, I think just a slightly uptick better than Nick. And think about how much better of a hitter JD is over Nick. So think about that. He fought hard to get 5 at 100, 110, whatever he got. if he is only making $9 million last year of arbitration, he's going to be a free agent next year. He's only 26. And he's going to want some money because, 3 of his last 5 seasons have been pretty good, especially the last 2. But he can't play defense at all. He was literally the worst defensive third baseman in baseball his entire career at third. I mean, honestly, you could have kept the hole open at third base, and it would have been about as effective of having Nick Castellanos there. So then they shift him to right. He's the fucking worst right fielder in baseball by a lot. A shit ton. And that's with one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball, Jacoby Jones, playing center, which should make your corners better. Because if you have a rangy center fielder, it makes your corners better because they don't have to cover as much ground because your center fielder is so much better. So he's 26, team-friendly contract, going his free agent year. If Harper and Machado can't get the big-ass mega deals they're trying to get, which I think these guys are batshit fucking crazy, thinking they're getting $400 million when baseball, even with these guys being 26, with the way the financial front and teams, how they're handing out mega deals work, because so many teams trying to stay under the luxury tax, he has no value. He provides nothing to a team. No team wants to put a guy who's 26 at fucking DH all year. They just don't. They want guys, who are Miguel Cabrera or Victor Martinez as a DH. When you're fucking Nick Castellanos' age, you need to have some kind of defensive value or at least be able to play somewhat close to league average defense out there. No team is going to give you Alex Verdugo who's got 5 years of team control or 6 years of team control. Well, no, it's 5 because he was up in the big leagues last year. For fucking a 1-year free agent who's making $9 million a year who can't play fucking defense at all. You're not going to get that far. It just doesn't play. I was listening to Tiger Talk, and Pat Caputo, of all people, I can't fucking stand Pat Caputo. I think he's a dipshit, but he made a good point. Chris Carter 1 year led the league in NL and home runs. Or it was NL or AL, I can't remember. I can't remember if he was Milwaukee or Oakland. I think he was with Milwaukee. He had like 41 home runs, led the NL in home runs. He couldn't get a starting job anywhere the year after. And he had 41 and played almost 162. Nick just doesn't have any trade value, and it just is what it is. So for all these Tiger fans going, well, if they trade Nick, they're going to have to get a boatload for him, blah, 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 blah. It's just not going to happen. In today's baseball, if you have no defensive value and you can't provide anything, you can't even play league average, and you're to the point to where your offense is literally you're literally almost a league average player, even though your offensive statistics are on base is good. You can hit, because Nick can hit the gaps. He can, even though he gets a little strikeout happy, he can still put the ball in play. He's got a very good swing. He makes a lot of contact. He's a smart hitter. He's a good hitter. But when you're sitting here and you're literally that bad at defense and you're only fucking 26 and teams are going, we won't give you a bag of balls for this kid, and you can't even get a 4A prospect for him, that just tells you how baseball is nowadays, and he just doesn't have any value. So now Nick and his agent have come out kind of crying like little babies, saying, hey, if they're going to trade Nick Castellanos, they prefer to do it before spring training so he could go to his new team in spring training and get ready for the whole year, blah, 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 because he doesn't want to get traded over mid-season, and blah, 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 blah. And I guess the 619 podcast is going to be dead for good. Sorry, guys, even though it was a very good podcast. But just there's Tiger fans with their constant crying about what they're going to do with Nick Castellanos and they should keep him, and if they trade him, you got to get all this for him. And it's like, no. If they trade him, it's going to be for someone that people are going to be like, who? And he's probably going to be, like Gerald LeBeau, or I can't even say his last name. It was like Gyro LeBout or LeBloat, whatever it was. He was a part of the David Price trade when they got Norris and Boyd, and then the Tigers released him, and then re-signed him, and then released him. He's going to be that dude that doesn't really impact you at all. Even though I said the same thing about Jacoby Jones. When they got Jacoby Jones from Pittsburgh, I honestly thought he was a fringe prospect, and I never thought he'd even become close to an everyday regular. Now, if Jacoby Jones could even hit a little bit and not hit 211 and strike out 1,000 fucking times a game, he'd be a really good player, because he could give you Gerard Dyson offense, but give you, Mike Trout defense and center. I mean, if you look at defensive runs saved, Jacoby Jones, I'm not saying he's Anderson Simmons in center, but he was like top 5 defender at any position last year. Compare defensive run saves. He's that good of a center fielder. The kid runs like a fucking deer, and he's a rangy as shit. But the problem is he hits 211, and he strikes out. If you give him 500 at bats, he's going to have 378 strikeouts. So you can't have that as a starting guy. So it's even hard to platoon him in there, but you want his defense because his defense is so good. So it's hard to find a spot for him. But, that's kind of what's going on in Tigerland right now. Are they going to trade Nick Castellanos? Which I think they're going to, but I think the return people are going to be very underwhelmed by, which is okay, because if you're going to trade him, you're going to trade him. And if you keep him, you keep him. He rots here for one more year, and then he's a free agent and go wherever the fuck he wants. So it just is what it is. Coming into the season, going into spring training, it's going to be, for me, what young kid makes the biggest push to come up and potentially start the year with the big squad. I'm hoping someone like Daz Cameron comes out and absolutely dazzles in spring, because I am so excited for Daz Cameron. His dad I was listening to an interview with Mike, and he just gave one of the best scouting reports I've ever heard on Daz. He was completely honest about his son's skill set. And Daz at the end of the year was making highlight catches and just highlight reel plays. I think he's very. I hope he gets a chance to go to spring training and turn some heads and whatnot, because I'm excited for Daz. I think he's got some great potential, and it would be awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing if Stewart can make the big squad this year out of spring training. I'm wondering if the Tigers are going to go after. They have some interest in Adrian Gonzalez. So do they sign him, which pretty much is going to put Miguel Cabrera for sure at DH all year, keep him off his feet as much as possible, because they don't want him re-hurting his biceps tendon. Also going to spring training, is Nick going to be on the team? And basically, do they put Norris in the bullpen? Does Joe Jimenez challenge Shane Greens for the closer role spot? And that's really about it. This season, coming into it, I expect, 85 plus losses again. I expect them to at least make it interesting for a little bit. I don't think they're going to do shit right off the bat. I think they tease us a little bit before they fall off. But the one thing I will say is that I'm excited for this team in the future. I legitimately am, because Avila has taken one of the worst farm systems in baseball. And the Tigers, I think, had the 4th most top 100 prospects in the baseball top 100 prospect list this past year. So he's giving us a legitimate shot to hit on some guys that are going to impact our squad and come up and actually be something. It's not the years of, okay, Nick Castellanos is our lone top 100 prospect, and Jacob Turner's our lone top 100 prospect. Those years are gone. And I think with the stable of arms that he has coming up, that's in AA and AAA, and some of the positional prospects, especially infielders with Isaac Paredes and Willie Castro, and then you got Daz Cameron, and then you got Cody Clemens. There's some really good players just in general coming up. Like I said, Alex Faedo and Franklin Perez and Jake Rogers, and you got Stewart up in the big leagues now. So there's some really good players coming up, and I'm excited for it. And I think this is the last year of true. You're going to go into the season looking at mediocrity, because they're just looking for stopgap pieces. I think these next 2 seasons, especially next season, one more year of all these guys in the minors, getting one more year experience. Then next year, most of these dudes start knocking on the door. And then that following year is going to be like, fuck. Look at these guys. I mean, look at the team they've assembled. And the positional prospects they have. I mean, you could be looking at a squad like the Houston Astros. Everyone pans out, and all these dudes are going to be young. They're going to be 25 or younger, and you're going to be like, fuck. They've been shit since 2016, but man, we got a 5-year chance with guys that are young, with guys that are cost-effective, with guys that can play defense, with guys that are speedy. It's not the 3-run home run guys anymore on here. We have an actual squad. And you'd be like, fuck, this is how it should have been. Because they already tried to buy the free agents and hit the 3-run home run, and it failed. So that's all I got for you guys today. Have a good one. I'll be back with more videos.